in this video, I want to talk about how we can use Webpack to bundle modules for React project. So first I'm going to create package.json. So we can start installing npm packages. So we need Webpack to bundle modules. So npm install Webpack, and also Webpack CLI to run Webpack from terminal, and save them as dev dependencies. Okay, so we can start writing configuration for Webpack. So we need to create a file called webpack.config.js. And we say module exports. And here we can start writing configuration. So first thing we can specify is entry point. So entry point is the module where bundling starts. So we can specify that. So by default, entry point is /source/index.js. So if you use different file name or different folder name, you need to specify that here. And we can also specify output. So first we can specify where we want to emit our bundle. So to do that, I'm going to use path module. So path module is one of Node.js's core modules, so we don't have to install it. And we're gonna say resolve their name and the name of the folder. Okay, so resolve method basically combines all the segments that we provide here to make an absolute path. So __dir name gives us the absolute path of the directory that contains the currently executed file. So this Webpack config.js sits right under the root root folder of our project. So this will basically create a folder called dist right under the root folder of our project. Yep. So if you want to use some different name for a folder, you can specify that here. You can also specify the name of the file. I think by default it's main.js, so I'm gonna do bundle.js. Okay, so next we can talk about loaders. So out of the box, Webpack only understands JavaScript and JSON files. So to help Webpack deal with other types of files like CSS images, we need to use loaders. So we're gonna say module, and we're gonna say rules, and create an array, and inside that we can start talking about how to deal with each type of files. So let's start with CSS. So we basically say two things. The first thing is what type of files we're talking about, and we need to say test, and here we basically make a pattern in regular expression to match any CSS file. So we're going to do escape.css $. $sign means the end of a string. In regular expression, dot means any character, so we need to escape it. And the second thing we can talk about is what loaders we can use to handle CSS file. So we create an array, and then inside that we can basically say what loaders to use. So for CSS we use two loaders. The first one is CSS loader, and then the second one is style loader. And we need to put them in the exact same order like this. It reads from right to left, and CSS loader is used first to convert CSS file into JavaScript file, and then style loader basically converts that into valid module. Alright, so next we can talk about images. So any image file basically ends either with .png or SVG or JPG or JPEG or GIF. And to handle image file, we can use the Webpack's built-in assets. So for image we say type and then we say asset, and we say resource. Alright, next we can talk about JavaScript. So when we bundle modules, we want to transpile ES6 plus code and also JSX if we use React down to ES5. So JavaScript file ends with .js, and we want to use Babel for that, and we're going to use a Babel loader. Alright, so we actually need to install these loaders. So npm install style loader, CSS loader, Babel loader, and then Babel core, which is the engine of Babel, and then Babel preset env. So we need that to transpile ES6 plus code, and then we need Babel preset React to transpile JSX down to ES5. We're going to install them as dev dependencies. Cool. So we need to also create configuration file for Babel. So we need to create a file called .babelrc, and here basically we can talk about what presets we want to use. preset env and preset React. Okay, so let's save the configuration files, and we can start creating a project. So I'm gonna create a folder called source, and inside here I'm gonna create a file called index.js because that's our entry point. And I'm gonna create another file called add.js, and basically I'm going to create a function here which takes 2 arguments and returns the result of adding the 2. So I'm gonna just say a plus b. Okay, and I'm going to export that function so it'll be available for other modules. So I'm gonna basically say module dot exports, and so that function is available here as well. So I'm going to bring that in here and store it in a variable, and I'm going to actually call that function and store the result in a variable called the result. So I can call that function, and let's give 1 and 2 for the arguments, and let's console log that result. Yeah, cool. So let's bundle our modules. So to do that we use Webpack. And I'm gonna say -- mode development. So there's a development mode and also production mode. We specify mode, and basically it tells Webpack to use its built-in optimizations accordingly. So if it's successful, it should create a folder called build, which will contain our bundle. So there's a folder called build here, and inside that we have bundle, and so right here we see var and also like ES5 function syntax. So when we bundled modules, Babel worked and transpiled in the ES6 plus syntax. So let's test it in our browser. So for now, let's create an HTML file manually. And basically I'm gonna put our bundle file here, and let's open it up in a browser. So open build index.html, and let's go to console, and now we see 3, which is the result of adding 1 and 2, which is the result of calling this function. Cool. So we created the HTML file manually and inserted this bundling here manually, which is tedious. So to automate it, we can use what's called HTML Webpack plugin. So we're going to install npm install HTML Webpack plugin. Okay, and go to Webpack config.js, and we need to actually bring that in. Okay. So to use this plugin, we're going to say plugins, create an array, and say new HTML Webpack plugin, like so. Okay, so let's save that, and let's also get rid of this build folder. Okay. And you know what, let's also make some change. Yeah. Okay, so if it's successful, HTML Webpack plugin will create an HTML file and inject bundle into it. Okay, so let's run Webpack with development mode. So if you go inside build folder now, we have HTML file that has bundle.js. Okay. So if you refresh the page, now we see the result 4. Okay. So every time I make some change to a project, if we had to, bundle it again, that's tedious, right? So what we can do is to use Webpack Dev Server, which has hot reloading function. So let's install Webpack Dev Server as a dev dependency. Cool. Alright, so let's get rid of this build folder again. And now we can run the server. So to do that, we're gonna say Webpack Serve, and we can say dash hot to enable hot to reload. So let's run it. Okay. Looks like compiled successfully. So the first line says project is running at localhost 8080. So let's go there and inspect, go to console. So it looks like Webpack Dev Server is working. Yeah. So what's great about this is that if we make some change to a project, that change will be reflected in the browser immediately. So let's make some change, and let's say 2020 instead of 22. So save that, and we see 40 here, which is great for speeding up our development process. Okay, so that's great. So let's stop dev server for now, and I think we can finally start creating a React project. So let's install React and React DOM. Okay, so let's create some React project. I'm gonna create a file called index.js, and let's import React. And let's create a component. Okay, so let's create h1, and let's also create an image tag. Okay, so I have an image here, so I'm going to create a folder for image, and I'm gonna just put that image there. And so I can bring in that image. So it's an image folder, Webpack, logo, SVG. Yep. So we can bring in an image into a JavaScript module like this, because we talked about it here. We talked about how to handle image. Okay, and what it returns is the path to this image from our bundle. So what that means is that we can use that for source attribute. Like this. Okay. And let's create a CSS file as well. And let's change the text color of h1. And we can bring that in, style.css. So just like image, we can also bring in CSS file here into JavaScript module like this, because we configured it here. All right, so I'm going to export this component. So we can bring that in here. Yep. And finally we can render our component. Okay, so the problem here is that right now this HTML Webpack plugin is creating HTML file and inject our bundle into it, but this HTML file does not have any element with an ID of root, so we can use our own template. So to do that, here we're gonna say template and then the path to the file. So I'm gonna put that template in source folder, and I'm gonna call that file index.html. Okay, so we can actually create that template. And here we can basically create an element with ID of root. Yeah. And we can, inject our React project into this DOM. Cool. So I'm gonna save that. And hopefully this React app will work. So I'm gonna run our Webpack Dev Server again. Webpack Serve -- mode development -- hot. Fingers crossed. It says compiled successfully. So I refresh the page, and there you go. This is our React app. Cool. So I can change the text color to orange, for example. Save it. The change is reflected immediately because of a hot reload feature of Webpack Dev Server. So this is, great. It speeds up development. So I think that's it. Yeah, that is it. Yep, that's it. So if you have any comments, please leave them below. Thank you for watching.